Hello, everyone. Good evening, and a very warm welcome to HSBC's interactive webinar on driving localization in healthcare in India. My name is Himelta Pereira, and I'm part of the B2B marketing team of HSBC, and I would be your MC for today. In today's session, our key policymakers, industry experts, and HSBC leadership will deep dive in the current outlook for the healthcare sector, highlight emerging trends in supply chain strategies in India for medical devices, APIs, and KSMs, focus on policy incentives, and analyze key opportunities and challenges across the healthcare ecosystem. Before we begin the session, some housekeeping rules. All attendee lines will be muted and video will be disabled during the session. The Q&A option on the menu bar at the bottom of your screen can be used to feed in your queries. This option will remain active during the entire session. However, due to paucity of time, the moderator may not be able to take all the questions. In case we are unable to answer your questions during the session, we will make sure to reach out to you individually and answer your queries. The session is being recorded. To kickstart the session and set context for our discussion today, I would like to hand over to Ambika Sharma, Managing Director, India, USIBC. Prior to USIBC, Ambika was Director General International FICCI. During her career of over 3 decades, she has led some of the most innovative and worthwhile endeavors of domestic and international teams, including America, Europe, Asia Pacific, and Oceania, Africa, and Foreign Trade Policy Division. She steered the agenda for the Forum of Parliamentarians and special initiatives, including economic diplomacy, projects with diaspora, and strategic and multilateral policy matters. She was responsible for taking forward FICCI's international agenda and dovetailing it with domestic strategy. In this context, she works closely with the Government of India, representing FICCI at bilateral and regional level, and leads conceptualization and implementation of mega programs at national and international levels. Over to you, Ambika.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good morning to our friends from India, from US, good afternoon and good evening. On behalf of the US-India Business Council and all our partners, I must say that this is a great opportunity to hold a seminar on a very timely topic, which is driving supply chain strategies in the healthcare. And I'm particularly thankful for a great lineup of speakers who have joined us, and we look forward to hearing their vision on this very, very important subject. I particularly like to acknowledge the presence of Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister, Dr. Vijay Raghavan. Dr. Raghavan, we are extremely thankful for your making time to join this evening in spite of some personal loss of a very close relative in your family. So it's really great. I must thank you on behalf of all the participants for making some time to be with us and keeping your commitment. It's something very, very encouraging for us. I also would like to thank Mr. Rosha and the entire team for driving this initiative today and giving us the opportunity. And my big hello to Mr. Jain Krishna, who heads the UKIBC, Deepak Bagla in West India, without whose views and ideas, I don't think I'm very fond of him. His webinar, any webinar could lead to a very good conclusion. Dr. Sarwal, NITI Aayog, thank you so much for joining us. And I know Mr. Rinwa may join us later, but the Deputy Secretary, Mr. Sumit Garg, you are with us. Senior members of the USIBC, the leaders from the industry, thank you so much. So since the onset of novel coronavirus, USIBC, with the effort of its member, has been relentlessly working in this area, making sure that there is a continuous effort on research, on supply, on not developing new diagnostics, vaccines, increasing the supply of the critical medical devices like ventilators and pulse oximeters, and delivering sufficient supplies of personal protective equipment to all the medical workers who have been in the forefront. In this whole endeavor in the last 6 months, USIBC has worked very closely both with central government in West India and state government to ensure that the effort of our member companies go just smoothly without any interruptions. Even during the initial period of lockdown, I must thank the state governments and Invest India for providing a tremendous support to ensure a very smooth operation of our members, though there were initial some hiccups. We think that what is not emphasized more often is that the global pandemic, while having exposed the harsh reality of the state of our global supply chains, provides our generation a chance to build a better future. In some cases, the partners like US, UK, and India, I think, are playing and can go a long way, playing a tremendous role in this aspect. Prime Minister's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, particularly in the backdrop of COVID-19, has brought into focus the restructuring of the global supply chains. And we really would like to hear some views of our eminent speakers on this. The disruption to the flow of intermediate goods and services during the COVID-19 lockdown has made governments and even more aware of the risk inherent in today's increasingly complex, specialized and global production processes. Therefore, today's webinar rather I'll call, on supply chain strategies in India for medical devices is going to be very key for shedding light on the opportunities and the challenges as well, which is being faced by the industry, for which we have very experienced hands-on managing directors of many medical devices company this evening with us. So with these brief words, I wish today's webinar a great success. And once again, I wanted to reassure that USIBC remains committed to the development of this important sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambika, for that well laid out context. I would also like to place on record my thanks to Professor and Dr. Vijay Raghavan for joining us this evening despite the personal setback he's had. It's very much appreciated, sir. And as Ambika said, your joining us greatly encourages all of us. I'd also like to welcome Dr. Sarwal, Mr. Rinwa, Dr. Garg, and of course, Deepak Bagla, without whose support, a lot of this would not have been possible, and Jayant from UKIBC as well. A big thank you for our attendees for joining us for this session. As Ambika said, this is a historical moment at this point in time for the healthcare sector. And quite frankly, prior to the pandemic, when we talked about it in the context of India, we were primarily focused on the pharma aspect of it. But increasingly, as we look ahead, medical devices, diagnostics, and the entire impact of digital on healthcare is becoming more and more important. And to an extent, it opens up even more the opportunity for India, given our capabilities in research and our proven track record in the areas of digital. So certainly from a base of a strong pharma industry that India has built over the years, to marry that with digital and with technology presents a unique opportunity for us. We are, as a bank, seeing our global corporate customers actively reviewing their supply chains across sectors. And in particular, in the healthcare space, India is coming up significantly in conversations as we discuss this with global boards or with global management teams across various countries. So holding this session today for us is really the next step in this process of bringing the policy developments and the outlook for the sector in India from the various guest speakers today to our customer base, and hopefully that leads to the next step of investment and increase in manufacturing capability in India. With a view to attain self-reliance and reduce import dependence in critical APIs, the scheme to promote domestic manufacturing of critical key starting materials, drug intermediates, the APIs have been approved by the government. On the other hand, the medical device manufacturing industry is still in its development stages. Most high-tech innovative products originate from a well-developed ecosystem and innovation cycle, which is yet to fully develop in India. Since the creation of testing and laboratory facilities requires huge investment, a scheme for setting up of bulk drug parks and medical device parks has been approved by the government. We also have 4 medtech zones in the country now, with the first one as AMTZ, in which setting up is literally a plug and play for investors. All of this is extremely encouraging when we think about the fact that the healthcare industry and the healthcare market in India effectively, which is currently at about 1.6% of GDP, we estimate that it will be 2.5% of GDP by the year 2025, presenting a significant opportunity for companies that invest in this space. But to share more insights and in-depth views about driving localization in India's healthcare sector, we have eminent speakers from the Government of India and industry captains who will highlight these opportunities for the audience. At this stage, I would like to also assure you of HSBC's commitment to ensuring that as you invest in India, we will work with you to with various stakeholders to ensure that you have a good soft landing into the ecosystem. And you have my guarantee that our efforts are ongoing to ensure that we can work together and thrive together. That said, I would like to now introduce our next speaker, Professor K. Vijay Raghavan, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. The PSA works with all arms of the government, with our states, our citizens, national and international agencies. The goal is that the benefits of science, technology, and innovation solutions reach the most needy for the sustainable development of India and for the well-being of our planet. Professor Raghavan succeeded Dr. Chidambaram on April 3, 2018, and the chairperson of the Prime Minister's Science, Technology, and Innovation Advisory Council. He was Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, Government of India from January 2013 until February 2018. He is also a distinguished professor at the National Center of Biological Sciences, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Bangalore, and was the NCBS director until 2013. He was awarded the Padma Shri by the Government of India in 2013. Dr. Raghavan, welcome. Thank you again for joining us. Over to you.
Very much, Mr. Rosha, and thank you all for having me today on this discussion on driving supply chain strategies in healthcare. One of the interesting things about the pandemic is how many people say that it was a bolt from the blue, and how surprising it was, and how unprepared many places were. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. Many international organizations over the last decade at least, and as close as November, December 2019, have warned about a potential respiratory pandemic. Let me give you 2 examples. The Coalition of Epidemic Preparedness and Innovation was formed a few years ago to deal with precisely these kinds of pandemics and raised resources to try and fight them. They had a lot of difficulty with many countries whose principal argument was the following, that why invest in a safety belt when I have not yet had an accident? And this is the challenge which we have in all our investments about future threats. We tend to go for what is frugal because that serves our current purposes, and we tend not to invest in insurance against future mishaps, known and unknown, because that results in costs going up. As late as December 2019, the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board also warned, and this was, by the way, just before the pandemic started, warned about a respiratory pandemic. Now, what is our level of preparedness? And that, of course, it's important to see that countries such as India, but also the most developed countries, had playbooks to deal with these kinds of pandemics. But the important point was that we have not had this kind of a pandemic for a long, long time. Indeed, perhaps not since 1980. And therefore, countries such as Spain and Italy even though they had detailed playbooks, were taken by surprise and took some time to recover. And countries such as India have such a diversity of landscape on different kinds of areas, kinds of locations, different diversity within cities, that there is no one simple playbook which can play out, and we have been called upon to act at relatively high speed. In the midst of all of this, the global supply chain was another big mountain which had crashed. Over the last decade, maybe a little longer, over 2 decades, there is something which has been happening steadily in global supply chains. And this is similar to the absence of insurance, which we didn't take out as a planet in preparation for pandemics. We also didn't take out insurance for the way global supply chains were organized. Networks and any network analysis, whether they're analyzing financial networks, economic networks, electrical networks, know that if the network property is dependent substantially on one or a few strong nodes, then we are in deep trouble, because if those nodes are affected, the entire network gets into trouble. And over the last 2 decades, what has been happening is we have built up a few extremely dependent nodes in the network on which everyone else is dependent. How did we allow these networks of supply chain to happen in this manner? It is partly because of laziness and partly because of greed. Having someone or small sets of people dominate a network provides temporary efficiency. Costs go down, supplies are much more streamlined as they get more and more experience in multiple kinds of delivery systems. But it also results in a laziness, because it results in a loss of science and technological capability between different smaller nodes in the network, abrogating that property to others and taking on themselves opportunities to fill and finish, as it were, but not to be truly innovative. Then, when there's a crisis and these nodes come crashing, everyone is very badly affected. Fortunately, some countries, such as India, have the core scientific, technological, and industrial capability to marginally recover. I'd like to say that this is marginally recovering, because this now is an enormous opportunity for us to go forward and change the strategies in supply chain, particularly in the healthcare sector, but more generally everywhere. What has happened as a result of the pandemic is that the braid of economics, politics, science, technology, and markets, which are so tightly wound around each other in a manner which we thought was unchangeable, has come apart. All these components have come apart now. Now, there is an opportunity to put together these components in new ways. We need now, therefore, to develop a new kind of supply chain network, which is forward-looking, which is 21st century, which has no strong nodes which can collapse and make everyone or the entire network unstable, but at the same time has distributed core capacities and mutual interdependence. Interestingly, technologies of today allow this, and many of the technologies were demonstrated during the pandemic about how innovative people were in communicating and in delivering during the pandemic. These technologies, at the core of it, going on to the future, whether it is health or anything else, will have design at the center. If you can design something on your computer, whether it is a shoelace or a space shuttle, whether it is a medical instrument or a drug, which you go through the laboratory process, then communicating that design to others for distributed manufacturing is the way of the future. Increasingly, that will happen. And technologies today increasingly make that feasible. So I thank you very much here for this opportunity. And I'd like to say that there are supply chain strategies which we're looking at now, which are simply redesigning what we already know. And those are going to be very valuable. But this is an opportunity for designing something new and future-looking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Raghavan. I would now like to hand over to Rakesh Sarwal, Additional Secretary, NITI Aayog, Government of India, for his special address. Dr. Rakesh Sarwal is a senior IAS officer and holds a doctorate degree in public health from Johns Hopkins University, USA. And he's also served in the social sector in various capacities in the northeastern state of Tripura and the Government of India. As advisor health, he was instrumental in preparing the 12th five-year plan. Over to you, Dr. Rakesh.
I'm delighted to be a part of this very distinguished panelist and this driving change strategies in healthcare, a policy perspective webinar. And thank you for HSBC to invite me today evening. I welcome all the delegates and the participants in the seminar. I hope it will be useful to all of you. It is at a very critical time, I think, that this webinar is being held on a topic which is very contextual and is very, very important. On the table, we have all the important and desirable policy framework, which is already laid down by the Government of India. It's a friendly FDI investment regime, 100% in greenhouse, as well as 74% automatic clearance in brownfield investments. We have an ease of doing business, improving ranks in the national level, as well as various states competing with each other for ease of doing business. We have this productivity-linked incentive, PLI policy, both for the medical devices as well as for the API, which is extremely attractive and fills a critical need at this time of the country. Now, in the context of this framework, we also have a huge need, a huge widely dispersed population, and a below normal doctor population ratio, which calls for the use of technology to augment human resource and to outreach in the areas which are underserved. So in the presence of these circumstances, now what is the strategy for the investors and the device makers need to adopt in order to click in this market, and in order to produce a product which is rewarding for them as well as empowering for those who use them? So I'll share some of my thoughts on that. Couple of thoughts. First of all, this 3D printer, as Professor Vijay Raghavan mentioned, decentralized, disseminated production frameworks, models, if they are available, then you can replicate the model. So 3D printing technology is something which is currently available and which can really change the ability to decentralize and to produce this stuff. Second is frugal technology. I think India is known for that. And with the Indian experts and Indian scientists, it comes very naturally to teams which work collaboratively to produce something which is rustic, which is durable, which is low cost, and which is easy for a person to handle, whether it be a patient or a paramedic and a doctor. So that, I think, is the second point that we need to be careful about. Maruti offers an excellent example, third point being of vendor development. I still see HP printers using cartridge which is imported, and I fail to understand why is it that we can't produce these cartridges in India. I'm not aware it's started being made, but it's so critically important that the end-to-end, all the ingredients that go into the final product as well as its usage be available in the supply chain, and only then does it empower the consumers as well as it brings profits to the producers. Next, and the point is, to my mind, is interoperability. The various devices, the medtech devices which can be produced or which are applicable in the healthcare sector range from prevention, lifestyle, diagnosis, therapeutics, rehabilitation. So there's a range of there's a range of canvas around which these devices can be manufactured and made available. Now, it's critically important that they be interoperable with each other, with the e-medicine and the telemedicine platforms, as well as the mobile phones, the Android platform that is currently available, so that they are empowering both to the citizen as well as to the doctor, as well as to the other manufacturers. So I think the standard setting standards in a way that are compatible with each other is extremely important, and I would think that there's a need for an initiative in this regard. I hope that like as was mentioned, that the way India is the generic pharmacy of the world, the APIs, the 41 APIs which are not currently being produced, will gradually be produced with this PLI, excellent PLI scheme being introduced in the country. And over time, with the opportunity that this present crisis presents, and the goodwill that all of you like the HSBC bring about, will be able to make into a hub of medtech devices as well as global APIs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh. We now move on. We're extremely glad to have Shri Navdeep Rinwa with us. While Navdeep Rinwa needs no formal introduction, he's a well-known IAS officer and is currently the Joint Secretary in the Department of Pharmaceuticals, Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. Prior to this, he was the JS with the Department of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Mr. Rinwa has been leading the policy framework along with the recent incentive policies. Mr. Rinwa will be taking us through the main tenets of the PLI policy and will also be joining the panel discussion, during which he will address opportunities and concerns by the industry. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to present our schemes. Can you see the first slide of the PPT?
Yes, sir, we can.
Next, please. Next slide, can we change? I would briefly give you an idea of the market size in India of medical devices as well as formulations and APIs, and then the salient features of the two new schemes, the PLI schemes that we have come out recently with on 27th July of this year, and then some initiatives that have been taken by various departments which concern the pharmaceutical sector. As we can see, in formulations, in pharmaceuticals, the domestic market and the export are almost equal, more than 20 billion US dollars each, whereas and we import about 5.5 or 5.42 billion US dollars worth of pharmaceuticals, whereas in medical devices, the imports make a lot of a big proportion of the total domestic market size, and the growth rates in both pharmaceutical as well medical devices are very good. Next, please. As we can see that we are the third largest in the country, in the world, in terms of volume of pharmaceuticals that we export, whereas when we see the value terms, we are about 14th. The reason being that we make mainly generic medicines, which are low cost or low priced compared to the patented or the innovator products. And in medical devices, we are 4th largest in Asia and 20th largest in the world. We make more than 500 APIs in our country, and we have more than 100 clusters of medical device and pharmaceutical units, and more than 60,000 generic brands across all therapeutic segments are there in the country. And we have recently come out with medical device rules, which are in harmony with international regulatory practices. And the pandemic has shown the kind of strength that the domestic industry has. Whereas in the beginning, when we went into the lockdown, the country was almost totally dependent on imports for ventilators, PPE kits, diagnostic kits, sanitizer, etc. And within few months, we are not only self-sufficient in all these important medical devices, but we are also exporting them. So that has given us a lot of confidence that in our PLI scheme for medical devices, we are going to get a very good response from our industry. Next, please. As we can see, compared to last year, the FDI in pharmaceuticals as well as medical devices has doubled. And these are some of the recent reforms or initiatives that we have taken. For greenfield, whether it's in medical devices or in pharmaceuticals, up to 100% of investment is under automatic route. That means you do not have to come to government for permission. In medical devices, even for brownfield, there is up to 100% is automatic route. Whereas in formulations, up to 74% investment is under automatic route. And if you are to invest more than 74% in a brownfield unit, only then you have to come to government for permission. Department of Pharma gives permission at a very fast pace. We don't have any backlog of proposals. And just to give you an idea, during the pandemic, from June to August of this year, we have received 12 investment proposals worth $914 million US. Next, please. So as I was mentioning, there are two schemes, PLI. One is for bulk drugs, another is for medical devices. In bulk drugs, we have selected 41 products. And using these 41 products, India is going to be self-sufficient in 53 APIs, currently on which we are dependent on imports. And in medical devices, we have made 4 segments of broad segments of medical devices on which this scheme will apply. Next, please. In the scheme for bulk drugs, the total outlay is $938 million US. That is the total incentive that would go to individual manufacturing units which are going to get selected under this scheme. The last date for application is 23rd November of this year. Applications will be received only online. There will be no physical requirement of submitting any documents and all. We have a project management agency, IFCI, a government PSU has been selected as the PMA, and the website, the portal, they have developed a special portal to receive the applications. The link of this portal is available on the website of the Department of Pharmaceuticals. Now, the selection will be going to be very transparent, only on 2 parameters. One is the capacity of the proposed plant. Higher the capacity proposed, more will be the marks. Second criteria is sale price of API, the product for which you are applying. And 65% weightage will be given to the marks obtained in this criteria. So lower the sale price, more will be the mark. Maximum number of applicants that can be selected under this scheme are 136. Next, please. And also an applicant is not bound that they can apply only for one product. If they are willing and they have the capacity, they can apply for all the 41 products. There is no bar. This slide just gives you an idea of the incentives. There are 4 segments. As you can see, one is the fermentation-based, 4 fermentation-based products. Now, and the second is also 10 fermentation-based products. The difference is the kind of investment. In first category, the investment is huge compared to the second segment. Then for chemical synthesis, we have further divided into 2 categories. Segment 3, which is of 4 products, and segment 4 is of 23 products. Here also, the differentiation between these 2 categories is only because of the kind of minimum investment that you are required to put in. And the numbers are the total incentives for that particular year. Next, please. So as I mentioned, there are 2 kind of products in the 41 products, fermentation-based and chemical synthesis. In fermentation-based, the incentive would be 20% on the sale price that you'll be selling your API domestically in India. For chemically synthesis-based products, the incentive would be 10%. Next, please. Now, this slide generally gives you which are the 4 products. Now, these are penicillin G, 7-ACA, Tioc, and clavinic acid. Then it gives the minimum production capacity. The proposal has to propose the capacity which is at least this much, which is given. It's also given in the guidelines. And these are the maximum incentives. For first 4 years of receiving incentives, rupees 120 crore would be the ceiling. That would be the maximum that a company can get per year. For 5th year, 90 crore is the maximum that the company can get. And for the last 6th year, 30 crores is the maximum incentive that a company can get. Similarly, for 7-ACA, you have to have a proposal of minimum 1,000 metric ton. and then the incentives are also given in last table. For TIOC, you have to have a capacity of minimum 800 MT. This is the minimum. You can propose more than that. And for each of these categories, 2 applicants are the maximum. So in 4 products, maximum 8 can be selected. Next, please. Similarly, in segment 2, there are 10 products. They all are fermentation-based products. The column is the minimum capacity, and last gives the maximum incentive per year per applicant. And can we move to the next slide, please? Here also, in this segment 2 also, maximum number is 2 applicants that can be selected per product. In segment 3, now we have come to the chemical-based products. There are 4 products only in category 3, 2 MNI, CDA, DCDA and PAP. And the minimum capacity is as prescribed, and maximum incentive per applicant per annum. So that is 10 crore per annum. That is the maximum a company can receive if it is selected. And 4 applicants can be selected, maximum 4 applicants per product. So for these 4 products, we can select maximum 16 applicants. Minimum investment is 50 crore per unit, per company, per product. So for example, you want to apply only for 2 MNI, then you have to invest minimum 50 crores. If you want to apply both for 2 MNI and CDA, you have to invest at least 100 crores. Next, please. Now, these are the 23, we can't see the 23rd product here. There are 23 products. Minimum investment is 20 crore per product. 4 applicants can be selected, maximum for 1 product, so 92 in all. And minimum capacities and maximum incentives per year. So 2.5 crore is the maximum incentive that a company can receive in these products. Next, please. For medical devices, the incentive is 5% for 5 years. Total outlay in this scheme is $462 million US. The company has to be registered in India to be eligible to apply. Minimum investment as of now is 180 crore, that is 24.3 million US dollars by 1 unit. And minimum net worth required for a company to apply is 2.43 million US dollars. Applicants can apply for multiple products, multiple target segments. Last date here also is 23rd November, and you can apply on the portal. Maximum number of applicants which can be selected under this scheme are 28. Next, please. Now, there are 4 target segments. One is cancer care, radiotherapy, radiology and imaging medical devices. Third is anesthetic and cardiorespiratory devices, renal devices. Fourth is all kinds of implants. And the important point is any key component which constitutes the finished medical device, and the examples have been given, and which has a distinct HS code for itself, will also be considered as included, and incentive can be given on production of such a component. Next, please. So this slide gives you the incentive rate is 5% for all the 5 years, and the investment is minimum 180 crore. You have to invest at least 60 crore in the first year, and cumulative investment by end of second year has to be 120 crore, and by end of third year, minimum 180 crores has to be invested. And this is the minimum threshold sale, 120 crore in first year, 240 in second year, and so on. Now, this is the minimum sale that a company has to achieve for it to get be eligible to receive incentives. And the last slide is the maximum incentive that a company can receive per year: 8 crore in first year, 17 in second, and so on. In the last year, maximum 37 crores will be the incentives. Now, we are in the process. We have received a lot of suggestions and from the industry in last month or so. We had an interaction with many associations, individual companies, and there is some thinking of changing the minimum threshold as well as the minimum incremental sales. It has been conveyed, and we understand that these two are pretty high compared to what is required. So there is some discussion going on. Maybe we'll get to get a final decision very soon. And with that change, I think number of companies which could apply would become much more than right now. Next, please. Now, we have really a lot of improvement in many areas in last few years. In market sophistication, we have improved a lot from 72 to 31 rank in 2020. Similarly, for knowledge and technology outputs, we have made rapid strides, as well as in R&D and patents and scientific publications. Next, please. Now, we have really improved in the ease of doing business ranking from 1 to 2014 consistently. We have been improving our rank, and we are now 63 in 2020. And in construction permits, getting electricity, we have really improved a lot. Corporate income tax for new companies which are going to commence production before 31st March of 2023, and they have to be registered on or after 1st October 2019. That means new companies, they'll be charged only 15% of corporate income tax. And we have come out with a public procurement order, new public procurement order promoting Make in India on 4th June, where we have divided all kind of manufacturers, suppliers into 3 categories. Class 1 supplier is the one which has 50% or more of local content. Local content is defined in the order. Class 2 is one which has content between 20% to 50%. And then a producer having a product less than 20% of local content will be classified as non-local supplier. Now, government will not issue global tenders for purchases worth less than 200 crores unless the procuring entity makes a special case and seeks approval from the competent authority to go for a global tender. And for tenders less than 200 crores, only class 1 and class 2 supplier will be able to participate. Next, please. Now, we have recently made a body called Pharma Bureau and Department of Pharmaceuticals, which is a body constituted of domain experts of pharmaceutical, bulk drugs, medical devices, project management. And the body's work is to handhold the industry in all kind of issues that they face from state governments, from various departments of Government of India. And it will also act as a project development cell. It would help investors to find potential partners in India for joint venture. For all kind of clearances, the Pharma Bureau would take up the issues with the concerning authorities. And we have a dedicated email ID and a phone number and a separate office for this Pharma Bureau. And I really hope with the coming of Pharma Bureau, the issues that the companies face sometime, the delays or any such issues which could be solved with the intervention of the department will be solved pretty fast. Next, please. That's all. Thank you very much, and I would be happy to answer the queries that will come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rinwa.